Russia's first patriotic war was over. Russian dead totaled 200,000 soldiers. The civilian death toll was even higher. But Alexander had no intention of ending the war. The Russian army went on the offensive, determined to defeat Napoleon once and for all. Alexander I and his allies fought their way across Europe, dethroning the upstart monarchs created by Napoleon and restoring the old order. On March 19, 1814, Alexander entered Paris at the head of the Allied troops. All Europe stood in awe of him. In London, he was made godparent to a future Queen of Great Britain, named after him, Alexandrina Victoria. In Berlin, the main square was named Alexanderplatz in his honor. In Paris, the Russian emperor made a great impression with his talk of constitutions and liberty. He was adored by the public, who treated him like a modern celebrity, struggling to get a glimpse of him. This was his favorite role, the Bel Roi, the great sovereign. From Paris, he went to Vienna, where a congress was held to decide the future of Europe. The Russian emperor entered an arena populated by the shrewdest minds and most cunning diplomats of the age. But he played his part masterfully, never revealing his true feelings or intentions. People came to call him the mysterious Russian Sphinx. The Congress of Vienna awarded Alexander yet more titles and more land. He was now ruler of all the Russias, King of Poland, Grand Duke of Finland, 55 titles in total. And for his victory over Napoleon, he was solemnly named the Blessed. When Alexander returned to Russia, he was not the same hot-headed, handsome boy that had dreamt of liberty and the common good. Not yet 40, he had already been hailed as the savior of Europe. Appearances were always important to Alexander. Everything had to be symmetrical, faultless, precise. His uniforms were always immaculate and fitted him exactly. No one had ever seen the emperor dressed casually, even at home. But now he became a true pedant. Documents had to be the exact same size and placed on his desk in neat piles. Furniture was arranged according to a plan, and nobody was permitted to move a chair or vase. If only it were possible to impose the same order on Russia. It was not the enlightened reformer Speransky who was now Alexander's closest companion, but the old soldier Count Alexei Arakcheyev, an artillery expert who had served the emperor's father Akachina. His closeness to the emperor aroused considerable resentment amongst other courtiers, who, behind his back, called him a brute and a guerrilla. Incredible stories were told about the Count. It was said he got so furious that he tore soldiers' moustaches off, and once even bit a soldier's ear off. But he was honest, able, and devoted to the emperor. He had Alexander's absolute trust. Alexander put Arakcheyev in charge of his new project, inspired by the ideas of a Welsh utopian socialist, Robert Owen. Alexander wanted to create military settlements where soldiers lived with their families and combined their military service with farming. Arakcheyev tried to talk Alexander out of the idea. He even begged him on bended knee, but he had received an order and would carry it out with all his ability. The emperor believed everyone would benefit from the settlements. Soldiers could live with their families. The army would feed itself. There would be good order everywhere. But conditions in the settlements instead quickly led to rioting. Life in the settlements was strictly regulated, down to the tiniest detail. Everything was identical, from houses to pots and pans. Every day was ordered around a strict timetable. Children were enlisted in the army at the age of 7, and from then on came under the authority of their officers, not their parents. Opposition and plots against him now caused Alexander to radically change his views. He turned his back on his former ideals of tolerance and liberalism. Instead, censorship was tightened. So-called free thinkers were placed under surveillance or sent into exile. In reports on secret societies, he kept seeing the same familiar names: Trubetskoy, the Muravyov brothers, Volkonsky, Pestel. But he stayed his hand. "I cannot judge them too severely," he said. "I once shared their ideals." Alexander began to increasingly question his own purpose. In a letter to the French diplomat Auguste de Choiseul-Gouffier, he wrote, "One needs to stand in my shoes to know what I feel. When I reflect that I will have to answer to God for the life of each one of my soldiers. No, the throne is not my calling. If I could with honor change the circumstances of my life, I'd do it with pleasure. I confess that sometimes I feel like beating my head against the wall." His father's murder, which had brought him to power, the deaths of thousands of Russian soldiers, the pursuit of glory that now seemed worthless. In his Bible,